Thank you very much. Please bear in mind that this is the very first step in our research, so which needs still tweaking and rethinking. So be generous. We'll start in medias res. So Jhumpa Lahiri. Jhumpa Lahiri was born to a Bengali family from Calcutta in 1967 in London, but Lahiri's father, a university librarian, decided to move to the United States for work. The family eventually settled in Rhode Island in the US when she was just 3 years old. So she graduated with a Bachelor of Art in English from Boston University and then obtained 3 master's degrees as well as a PhD in Renaissance Studies. So she's the author of 4 works of fiction listed here. So Interpreter of My Ladies, 1999, The Namesake, and Custom Earth, and The Lowland, and various short stories she published in journals and newspaper, and of course in Altre Parole, the first book entirely written in Italian, which we're going to talk about today. She cannot be considered a post-colonial writer. Nonetheless, in Luzzoni's words, she shares, and I quote, the same feeling of displacement and alienation. So about Lahiri's identity as a writer, Luzzoni says that, and I quote, it is a sort of double displacement, a displacement that consequently involves a reflection on identity. End of quote. In fact, in her book In Altre Parole, Lahiri frequently affirms that she doesn't feel a real identity, and rather she feels always suspended between 2 identities, Bengali and American, but never completely rooted into them. In this respect, according to the definition of identity by Bauman, and I quote, identity lacks a solid point of reference and needs continuous renegotiations across languages, cultures, and geographies. End of quote. Like a lake lacks a definite shape. So on this basis, our contribution intends to analyze the choice of writing in Italian as a way to live within the transcultural space created by the adopted language. Our paper explores the way in which questions of belonging and identity are inscribed in the storytelling process, based on the comparative analysis of post-colonial Somali novels and Jhumpa Lahiri's autobiographical work in Altre Parole that I mentioned before. The idea moves from Luzzoni's parallel between Lahiri and post-colonial writer Ijaba Shegon, especially in Roma Negata, that Rita was discussing today. And how both writers subvert the traditions of dominant European culture. Moving from different starting points, post-colonial Somali novels in Italian, Jhumpa Lahiri's autobiographical work challenged the conventional definition of what it means to be Italian. And following this trajectory, we decided to compare how Lahiri and Somali authors redefine the constructs of Italian identity and belonging. So, however, of course, there is a key difference between Lahiri and post-colonial writers, because Lahiri's decision to participate in both the Italian culture and literary tradition comes from a privileged position. For Lahiri, to write in Italian is a choice. So Jhumpa Lahiri herself remarks that hers is a unique case, because if it is true that past is filled with writers who chose to sojourn in Italy for intellectual reasons, and the writers who chose to write in another language, she does so to overcome her sense of estrangement. So, as a daughter of migrants in America, she spoke Bengali to please her parents, to feel like she belonged to them. Simultaneously, English became her stepmother. She adopted it and mastered to perfection, becoming an accomplished and recognized English writer. However, she still felt a sense of unease within the English language, and for this reason she needed a third space in which she could grow and feel finally at home. In Altre Parole, referring to her desire to appropriate Italian, Lahiri quotes a message sent to her by the writer Domenico Starnone that she translates. Una lingua nuova è quasi una vita nuova. Grammatica e sintassi ti rifondono, scivoli dentro un'altra logica e un altro sentimento. Reading his message, Lahiri understood better, and I quote, il desiderio di esprimermi in una nuova lingua, riuscire a sottopormi da scrittrice ad una metamorfosi. So on the other hand, post-colonial authors portray the language learning process as a product of the colonialism. And we find the topic of language learning in several Somali texts. It is mentioned, for example, in Lontano da Mogadiscio by Ramzali Fazel. L'italiano è stata la prima lingua che ho studiato sui banchi di scuola, dalle filastrocche cantate all'asilo alle poesie del Pascoli nelle scuole superiori. Però, malgrado la padronanza della lingua e la familiarità del modello culturale che mi è stato impresso, già da allora percepivo il fastidioso atteggiamento di velata superiorità che dominava. In Ijaba Shego's novel Rhoda, a passage describes the relationship between Barney, the protagonist's aunt, and Italian culture and language. Era brava in italiano, ai temi prendeva sempre 8 ed era anche un mostro nel parlare. Conosceva parole di 12 lettere e faceva sentenze arzigogolate degne del miglior azzeccagarbugli sulla piazza. Che cosa le era successo poi? Dove era finito quel suo italiano così ricercato? Lo aveva rinnegato, semplicemente. So controversially, the Italian language fascinated Jhumpa Lahiri long before she could understand it. She first went to Italy on holiday with a sister in her 20s, a newly graduated PhD student who had yet to publish. Instead of a guidebook, she bought a dictionary with the green plastic cover. Da allora, per molti anni, ogni volta che vado in Italia porto questo dizionario con me. Mi guida, mi protegge, mi spiega tutto. Diventa sia una mappa che una bussola, senza la quale so che sarei smarrita. Lo ritengo un testo sacro, pieno di segreti, di rivelazioni. So over the years, she took Italian lessons and immersed herself even deeper in the language. Finally, in 2012, she moved with her husband and children to live in Rome, la prima vera partenza della mia vita, choosing to leave the US and the English language. In 2015, Jhumpa Lahiri published In Altre Parole, her first book written in Italian. In the second chapter, she talks about that dictionary she had bought 20 years before as the bridge that allowed her to get closer to the house she wanted to dwell in. A friend of hers says, "Soon you will be living inside an Italian dictionary," namely Italy. Bridges are a trope in literature used by several writers, including Primo Levi, who states, I always thought that building bridges is the best job here, because roads go over bridges, and without roads we'll still be like savages, as per last night. In short, bridges are like the opposite of borders, and borders are where wars start. So similarly, in her book In Altre Parole, Lahiri desires to cross a very deep lake, you know the metaphor she opened the book with. Positioning the lake as a metaphor for learning the Italian language, she writes that she feels, and I quote, afraid of being in the water without any support. Furthermore, the other shore of the lake seems too far away, so she considered crossing the lake behind her abilities. However, when, 20 years after her first visit, she decides to move with her family to Rome, mastering another language becomes the way through which she deconstructs and reconstructs her already complex identity. The language seems to allow Lahiri to encapsulate and enhance all her identities. In Rome, as suggested by Richard, and I quote, la casa è fra I 5 concetti che Jennifer Burns elenca come tipici per la letteratura della migrazione italofona: identità, memoria, casa, luogo, letteratura, e che in Lahiri formano un'unità, sono congruenti, costitutivi per la sua opera. Per Jhumpa Lahiri è la lingua a costituire il suo luogo di affetto e di riflessione, sovrapponendo attraverso il criterio linguistico Roma sia all'India che agli Stati Uniti. Therefore, it does not come as a surprise finding the same topic also in post-colonial writers. In her article To Live in the Afternoon, poet and writer Ubah Cristina Alifara writes, in English, house and home aren't the same thing. Home is intimacy, the dwelling, the soul's place. There is a similar difference between guri and dar, although with other nuances. So there are to Somali words. Guri, it's house, and dar, it's home. Moving from a linguistic difference that is easier to understand in English and in Somali than in Italian, where we only have the word casa for both, house and home, Ali Farah focuses on the complex topic of belonging. And Yabar, the young protagonist of her coming-of-age book Il Comandante del Fiume, seems to find his place in Rome as Jhumpa Lahiri does. So, quando stavo a Londra ho capito che siete voi la mia famiglia. Sissi, tu, mamma, zia Rosa, e Roma è la nostra città. In La mia casa dove sono, Ijaba Shego's fictional alter ego similarly sees in Rome the place where her past and her present overlap and mix. Io sono il frutto di questi caos intrecciati e la mia mappa è lo specchio di questi cambiamenti. Non è una mappa perenne, è centro ma è anche periferia, è Roma ma è anche Mogadiscio, è Ijaba ma siete anche voi. So for both Shego and Lahiri, Italian is the language that creates their home. When Jhumpa Lahiri writes in Italian, she feels simultaneously free and constrained. And I quote, l'italiano è la lingua del disagio, della scomodità mentale, anche un po' dal punto di vista creativo, eppure mi sento a casa in italiano. This paradox of love to gain freedom mirrors the paradox of belonging to a place that can be seen as alien to her cultural background and her upbringing. And possibly it is because of this alienation that the alien finally finds his home, where one is free to be oneself, namely in Rome. The image of the triangle evoked in the book, in altre parole, explains her transculturalization. She needs to add a third identity to create a third space for herself, where she is born again to the Italian language, initially seen as a parent, then as a brother, and then eventually as a son. In the Italian language, she can have a second adolescence, rebelling against the sense of straniamento she had felt as a child of Bengali migrants in America, transgressing the borders that her double identity had imposed upon her. So as she starts writing a diary in Italian, she realizes that the only purpose she has is to be understood and to understand herself. Fin da ragazza appartengo soltanto alle mie parole. Non ho un paese, una cultura precisa. La lingua è lo specchio, la metafora principale. Divento le mie parole e le mie parole diventano me. So on the specific aspect of the use of Italian by someone whom Italians identify as foreign, there is the episode of the passport in Somali author Garane Garane's Il latte è buono. So the main character, a young Somali named Gashan, after years spending dreaming of Dante's homeland, finally arrives in Italy. He is a refined and cultured person, grew up with the myth of Italian and his culture, within which he was educated. As soon as he disembarks at Fiumicino, he's asked to show his passport. And after a brief exchange, the officer, realizing he speaks Italian fluently, asks him, "E come mai parla un italiano così perfetto? Ha l'accento fiorentino? È nero oppure un italiano che si è tinto la pelle di nero?" The episode is roughly set in the 70s, but the situation has not improved that much. If Jhumpa Lahiri tells Cressida Leison in her interview Writing in Italian, published on the New Yorker last January, immigration in Italy is a relatively recent phenomenon, and the debate assumes a specific declination given that the notion of Italian remains racially quite exclusive, ossia unequivocally white. Jhumpa Lahiri herself wrote about a significant episode on how Italians perceive and judge someone's Italian based on their appearance. So, in altre parole, Jhumpa Lahiri tells about her family trip to Salerno, where she enters a shop to buy some clothes for her children. She talks for a while with the shop assistant, and then her husband enters the shop as well, and they exchange a few comments in Italian about a jacket, very trivial conversation. She says that he doesn't even reply in full sentences, but in monosyllables. Sure, I like it, yes, Let's see. And I quote, mio marito parla spagnolo alla perfezione, quindi tende a parlare l'italiano con un accento spagnolo. Parla bene l'italiano mio marito, ma non lo parla meglio di me. Alla cassa, mentre sto pagando, la commessa mi chiede da dove venite? Le spiego che abitiamo a Roma, che ci siamo trasferiti in Italia lo scorso anno da New York. A quel punto la commessa mi dice ma tuo marito deve essere italiano, lui parla perfettamente, senza nessun accento. Mi viene da piangere. Non dico niente alla commessa, la ringrazio, la saluto e poi esco. Sono senza parole. Dico finalmente a mio marito in italiano quando siamo per strada: sono sbalordita. E mio marito mi chiede in inglese: cosa significa sbalordita? So later in the chapter, the author underlines her frustration for being undermined just because of her appearance. She says that. Quelli che non mi conoscono, guardandomi, presuppongono che io non sappia l'italiano. Quando mi rivolgo a loro in italiano, quando chiedo qualcosa, una testa d'aglio, un francobollo l'ora, dicono perplessi: non ho capito. È sempre la stessa risposta, lo stesso cipiglio, come se il mio italiano fosse un'altra lingua. The same wall Jhumpa Lahiri describes between herself and the biased listener is central in the short story Un tesserio bollente by Kaha Mohamed Aden. The protagonist, who is understood to be Somali, he is longing to drink a tea prepared accordingly to the Somali tradition, and she goes out to buy some spices with two assumed to be Italian friends, la Eli e la Dani. At the market, they go to a store that sells cooking herbs, where the narrator talks to the lady at the counter. Ci precipitiamo dalla signora e le chiedo se vende le spezie. La signora: quali? Io: ah, del cardamomo? La signora: carne d'uomo? Signorina, queste cose non si dicono e non troverà mai carne del genere dalle nostre parti. In un baleno mi sono resa conto di quello che vedeva la signora. Tutti erano bianchi tranne me. A Eli e Dani sembrava che avessero versato addosso il tè bollente. Ho cercato di incontrare i loro occhi e ho detto ridendo ad alta voce: beh, che c'è di strano? Ha solo detto che sono nera, oppure negra. E Eli e Dani hanno riso insieme a me e insieme abbiamo lasciato il mercato. So despite the clarity of the language and the appropriateness of the words used, such as cardamom, the inherent prejudice of the herb vendor warps her ability to understand or accurately hear what is being said to her. So instead of silent frustration endured by Lahiri, Aden's character turns the table on the vendor and unveils the racism hidden in her words. So to conclude, in light of this analysis, even if Lahiri's in altre parole cannot be labeled post-colonial, it resonates with the multifarious aspect of post-colonial discourse in Luzzoni's words, and it contributes to redefine concept of alienation, identity, and belonging in a book where, and I quote, language is not only the tool but also the subject. So paraphrasing what Ali Farah states about theatre and its political and social role, and I quote, the constant reference to common values, to simply ordinary practices, has the power to create a shared sense of belonging that makes the reader aware of their national identity. Post-colonial Somali novels in Italia and Jhumpa Lahiri's autobiographical work challenge the definition of what it means to be Italian by challenging the conventional concept of home. In their work, home becomes the language and the culture they decided to inhabit. The influential voice of a Pulitzer Prize winner such as Lahiri increases the prominence of the current public debate on questions of citizenship and nationalities, and facilitates the creation of a space in which it is, and I quote, possible to live in more than one homeland at the same time without asking for permission. Thank you, Laura.